The Texas Longhorns return home after their big win against Michigan as they take on UTSA in non-conference play. We're here previewing, predicting, and breaking down this game as the Longhorns and Roadrunners do battle. Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Phillips. He's Dave Shumate. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn notifications. Check us out via podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us across all social media platforms as well as our website, SECUnfiltered.com. This segment brought to you by our friends over at MyBookie. Go to mybookie.ag, use promo code SECU at sign up to receive a special welcome offer on your first deposit. That's mybookie.ag, promo code SECU to get your special welcome offer today. Texas looks to keep the positive momentum rolling after their blowout win over the Michigan Wolverines just a week ago, and they will welcome to Austin, Texas, the UTSA Roadrunners in a non-conference matchup. We're here previewing, predicting, and breaking down this game, and helping me do so, my good friend, Dave Shumate. Dave, what's going on, man? Appreciate you taking the time and excited to break down this one with you.
Yeah, big one. I mean, from a Texas standpoint, I feel like they got to, again, not looking ahead, not disrespecting Mississippi State, not disrespecting ULM, not disrespecting the bye week that, hey, you could lose to 6th Street in Austin. You could go out there and you could lose your bye week. You go out and do something stupid. But Texas has a couple of weeks here, Chris, when I was prepping for this game, for us to do this preview. You go look at the schedule. They got a couple of weeks to get right before Red River and Georgia in back-to-back weeks. I mean, like I said, they got UTSA this week. I think Jeff Traylor and them will probably give them the best shot. You have Mississippi State, ULM bye week. It's something like that. This is 3 games. It's the next 4 weeks, really, for Texas. So it's kind of like, got to go focus on yourself. And you hate saying that cliche stuff, but let's go find, hey, can Jonte Cook go be that guy? Can Matthew Golden go take that next step for us? Can we go – how can we fit in Silas Bolden into the game plan? Does Isaiah Bond take that next step? Trey Wisner, we got to keep working the running back spots there. I mean, I feel like we know what we can get with our guy Blue, with Jaden Blue, but also work some depth guys on the offensive line. I mean, I know nobody will get fired up to hear this, but you probably want to see Arch a little bit. Maybe you throw in some wrinkles on offense that'll make Georgia and Oklahoma have to go do some second prep. Like, hey, they at least got to show this to their team in practice. Maybe you throw a fake punt, fake field goal on there just to put it on film to make someone prepare for it. It's kind of next 4 weeks. Again, we talked about it going into the season. Texas's SEC schedule really sets up nice. I mean, you look at the back half too. I mean, Kentucky, as we stand right now, doesn't look as good as potentially some people, myself included, thought heading into the season. A&M still to be determined. But this Texas schedule sets up real good. It sets up real nice for them to kind of go figure themselves out over the next few weeks. Because I think this is Sark's most versatile team he's had. I don't think that's saying a whole lot. I think we'd all agree with this, but they can win in many new different ways, and I think that's how the great teams do it.
Yeah, to your point, they can win in a rock fight, they can win in a track meet, and the best teams find different ways to win. Texas, I think, has already shown that early. And to your point, Dave, I think in a game like this, we're going to talk about it, break it down. The game's probably never going to be in doubt, but it's about individual personnel, individual players, guys getting in a groove, building confidence. That's what these games are supposed to be for, and I think that'll probably be the case for Texas. Again, this is a 7 p.m. Eastern time kickoff on ESPN. This one being aired on the big channel. Game being played, of course, at DKR Texas Memorial Stadium. Texas is a 35.5-point favorite. The over-under set at 53.5. These teams, Dave, have met only once in their history. Texas leads the series 1-0. That game was in 2022. Texas won 41-20. Dave, as we take a look at the Roadrunners, they are 1-1 overall right now. Won their season opener 28-16 over Kennesaw State before losing last week in week 2, 49-10 to Texas State. Owen McCown, they replaced their quarterback. Owen McCown takes over. He's the son of Josh McCown, but even last week you look against Texas State, Dave, kind of split the reps. Eddie Lee Marburger as well. So it looks like they might have a bit of a quarterback controversy or just trying to figure out who their guy is. 2 guys fighting for the starting job. Again, like I mentioned, they replaced their quarterback from last year, top 2 receivers, multiple offensive linemen. You might recall, Dave, UTSA was, they were a really, really good offense. There was people talking last year's preseason of, maybe that could be a trap game for Tennessee and they could pull the upset. And, that never came to fruition. But that shows you that they had a really, really good team. The fact we were even having those conversations. Kavorian Barnes, and Robert Henry, their main running backs. I would say Barnes is probably their top playmaker on offense. Willie McCoy, DeCorian Clark, top targets on the outside at wide receiver. Dave, this is life at the G5. Their top 2 defensive players transferred, and one of them went to Texas in Trey Moore. Very noteworthy player that came over to Texas. Cam Alexander went to Oregon. Again, that is just life at the G5 level. Danye Taylor leads their defense at linebacker. And Dave, something that stood out to me last year, and again, this is last year, but you think about the guys they lost and coming in the year, they were ranked outside of the top 100 in plays of 20 yards or more allowed. So I know you love to talk about explosives. We talk about explosives all the time. They were not good at limiting those explosive plays. So as we dive into this game, Dave, I'll start there. You know, you're following up last week's dominant win against Michigan, where, again, you were able to win that game in a rock fight, go in there and out Michigan, and win with physicality, and that was so impressive. With the way UTSA plays and maybe some of their deficiencies, Dave, it feels like this should be more of the track meet style of game, and we should see a lot of big-time explosive plays down the field for Texas.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, you need to try to – I think this is a big freshman game. You talk about explosives. I think you could get Jarrett Gibson involved, Ryan Wingo, big-time wide receiver. Maybe he fits into that top 3 kind of rotation for Texas at some point. I think this is kind of one of those games with him. Ryan Wingo, I could see Arch Manning to Ryan Wingo a couple times in the second half. I think that's what it's going to kind of be from that perspective. Do you fit Amari? I know he's not a freshman, but Amari Nyblack. I mean, do you fit him into this offense? You didn't see him a lot last week. I mean, you really hadn't seen him at all, have you? I mean,
no,
really,
I think he had 1 catch in the season opener, so he hasn't made much of an impact.
No, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, he's really been the Gunnar Helm show at the tight end spot. Had the touchdown last week, first score of the game against Michigan. But I'll be interested to see how those guys fit. Jonte Cook, from an explosive standpoint, Amari Nyblack, Jarrett Gibson, and Ryan Wingo would be the 4 names. And obviously, if you want to throw in Arch Manning, and on the defensive side of the ball, I'd throw in Colin Simmons as well.
And Dave, you mentioned the running back position. I think that's something to follow with Texas. I mean, again, just kind of continue to develop that room. We know what Jaden Blue gives us, but you know, you're going to need those guys when you're trying to lean on Georgia, lean on Oklahoma, right? Even with Oklahoma's struggles, they're really, really talented defense, one of the better defenses in the league. So, you know, I think, again, from the standpoint of the score is kind of secondary in a game like this. Obviously, you want to win comfortably, but it's about individual performers, Dave. Would you agree with that? I mean, I think it's about identifying individual performers, young guys, like you mentioned, a Ryan Wingo. This is probably going to be a big-time Arch Manning game. I'd be kind of surprised if Quinn Ewers played the second half. Maybe he plays into the third quarter a little bit, but be surprised if he played the fourth quarter at least. Probably going to be a lot of young guys. Probably going to be a lot of Arch Manning, a guy like Ryan Wingo on the outside. Just other guys getting opportunities to make big plays and build confidence. And, you know, you talked about this week with Tennessee, with their depth. The best teams have the depth, and I think this is your depth builder kind of game here.
For sure, because, I mean, again, the season's longer this year for teams like Texas, whose goal is to win the SEC, win the national championship, go far, obviously, in the playoffs. It's a 17-game season now. They're kind of looking at it. We got to go find competitive depth because inevitably injuries are going to happen to everybody. We're going to have some guys step up that were probably going into the season not having to step up in December or January when playoff time comes around. Let's go figure out who we can trust on game day in these type of games against UTSA, against ULM, as Texas plays that down the line. Like, let's go figure that out. Let's see who we can trust, who can get in the rotation at receiver, who can help us as a pass rusher, who can help us at the running back spot. I mean, quarterback spot with Arch Manning. Like, I think this is that trust game. Who can we go build a game plan around a little bit? Game gets a little bit out of hand. We can kind of go put them in situations, see how they handle it, and say, hey, we feel good after going to review this game against UTSA. We think against Georgia, Oklahoma, and Red River, or when Georgia comes to us the next week in Austin, like, hey, in a big situation, if Isaiah Bond were to go down and we need somebody to step up, next man up, we trust Ryan Wingo can get the job done.
And, Dave, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention as a top storyline in this game, Trey Moore taking on his old team. I mean, I'm sure he's excited for that. That'll be a lot of fun, kind of a unique thing. And like I said, that is life at the G5 level. Hey, Dave, it's interesting. Before we give our predictions for this one, again, we're not going to spend time splitting hairs on this. I think we all agree that Texas is going to be able to come in, build off the momentum of last week, ideally against second halves. A lot of young guys, a lot of freshmen, empty the bench. Again, there's no need to overcomplicate this one, but it does kind of feel like in these games, and I don't know if this is because of the portal or, you know, I think there's a lot of parity in college football, but it's a lot of parity at the top, Dave, where I'm not, you know, I'm not really worried in these types of games anymore. I don't know. Like, you always feel like in college football something crazy can happen. And I'm not trying to jinx anything, by the way, Texas fans, but it just feels like the separation. We've really seen a separation. Like, I feel like we've already seen more blowouts in these SEC G5 games than we've seen in quite some time. Like, is that fair? It feels like there is the parity at the top, it's increased. The gap between in a game like this has never been wider, I feel like.
Yeah, and obviously UTSA is a SWAC team, but especially when you get into that kind of level, it's like, man, the haves and have-nots are even bigger now. But again, UTSA is not a SWAC team, but it's kind of wild. The Jeff Traylor's name kind of going down now. So me and you talked about it. From a G5 level standpoint, it's like you're a hot, sexy name for a minute, and you just have one bad year or something, and it's like, oh, never mind. He's not really going to be up for the Baylor job now. Like, if that were to come open and Dave Aranda lose his job. It's remember Jeff Traylor was up for A&M a little bit, name being thrown around, like UTSA, sexy, playing well, G5, and then it's just like 1 year later, you can be depleted roster-wise, and you're just like, we're fighting our tails off to try to get 6 wins, try to go get 4 wins within our conference. And that feels like kind of where the Roadrunners and Jeff Traylor are at this year. But you're right. There's a bigger gap. Again, you're not – I mean, the line was 39.5 in this
35.5.
35.5. Like, you're just – yeah, you're not worried about it upset here. And here we are talking about it after Northern Illinois beat Notre Dame, but I feel like that's a little different. It's a little different. Notre Dame doesn't have the athletes Texas have. And again, that's some of that. They're not as portal heavy. The academic standards doesn't allow that. But overall, though, I'd agree with you. There's a big gap, and especially when you get down to that SWAC level. I don't even think you can take anything from those games. I mean, look what Auburn did to Alabama A&M, and look what they did the very next week.
Dave, again, you mentioned 35.5-point spread in this game. Texas facing a team that lost by 39 to Texas State. So, as we go into our predictions, Dave, I think this is a name-your-score game. I think this is an empty-the-bench game. I think this is a depth game. I think you will see a lot of Arch Manning in this one. Again, where last week was kind of bully ball and Texas won with the physicality, and certainly they'll bring the physicality this week. I think that's a trademark of the program at this point. I think it's going to be a bit more of a track meet. I think you're going to see big plays, explosives on the field. Again, this defense ranked outside of the top 100 in plays of 20 yards or more allowed. I think you're going to see a handful of those at least. I think it's a big day for Texas offensively. I think the defense will handle their business and dominate. I've got them getting a 56-13 win. And again, Dave, what I really just see is a name-your-score kind of game in Austin.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to go 49-10, not as bad. I just think Texas in the second half probably just doesn't show a lot, and they're just going to go try to win their one-on-one battles. Again, I expect them to throw maybe – I mean, I know that they probably get hell for this, running fakes against UTSA, but it's not like they're trying to embarrass them. It's just to make a Georgia or Oklahoma who's coming up within the next month, that's something else they got to go spend time on instead of focusing on others. It's a little bit of a game within the game kind of deal, and I'm sure they'll throw some offensive pictures that make defensive coordinators like Zach Alley, Brent Venables, and Glenn Schumann and Kirby Smart have to go spend some extra time. But yeah, this is a name-your-score game. I mean, Texas could beat these guys by 50 if they wanted to, but I think it's going to be something like 49-10, something like that. I think we see, like you said, we're seeing a bunch of those big-time freshman names that Texas has signed in the recent 2024 class here, I think, in the second half.
So, guys, do you agree with us? Do you disagree? How do you see it playing out when Texas and UTSA do battle this weekend in Austin? Guys, that's going to do it all for us. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn notifications. Check us out via podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us across all social media platforms, as well as our website, SECUnfiltered.com. For Dave Shumate, I'm Chris Phillips. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, and we'll catch you on the other side.